Welcome back, everyone. It's Dave again. Today we're going to be going through Rule 6.07. This is the rule that we omitted from the 6.0 discussion, and it has to do completely with batting out of turn. It's really not as complicated as we make this out to be. So let's talk about some of the ground rules regarding this rule first. Okay? Number one, during regular season games, we don't manage lineups. There oftentimes will be complete and perpetual batting orders, so every player bats. Doesn't matter if they're in the field or not, they can do that. Continuous batting order, all they want is fine. In 10 years of umpiring, I have seen an issue regarding batting out of turn once, and it didn't get very far. It was a very easy scenario. It just doesn't happen very frequently, okay? With that said, understand this rule. Be sure that you know what's going on, primarily because you can get it out. So understand when you can get it out. Again, we're not looking to penalize the kid, we're looking to apply the rules. And if you get a situation where they bat out of order and somebody realizes it, you can get it out in that scenario. Also, somebody on the field needs to know this rule. The coaches are not going to know. So be sure that you understand the components. And there's really only 3 or 4 tenets to this whole rule that we'll get into right now. Okay? So a batter shall be called out on appeal. Okay, so understand what the meaning of an appeal play is. When failing to bat in his or her proper turn, and another batter completes a time at bat in place of that proper batter. Now, basically that means that if somebody bats out of order, you've got Abel, Baker, Charles as your batting order. Baker just comes up to bat and Abel doesn't. Okay, completes that turn at bat. You'll understand from 6.0 what complete a turn at bat means. Then they can appeal that, and depending upon when they appeal, certain things can happen. But before we get to that scenario, okay, if we've got a situation where the proper batter, however, may take a position in the batter's box at any time before the improper batter becomes a runner or is retired, in other words, completes their time at bat. And whatever count they have, any balls and strikes, shall be counted at the proper batter's time at bat. And we'll see a scenario about this in a minute. Okay, so think about this. You've got Abel, Baker, Charles. Baker comes up to bat instead of Abel. It's 2-1 on the batter. And then the team realizes what's going on. The offensive team says, whoop, wait a minute, time. We need to switch it. We've got the wrong guy in the box. What happens then? Okay? Or in that scenario, the defensive team says, hey, we think he's got the wrong batter up there. Hang on for a second, guys. Asks for time. They try and sort things out. The idea is to sort this out and get it right on the field. You don't want to go looking for outs here, hope that they don't catch it, and then tip them off after so that you can get an out of this. So just understand what's going on. Another option here, when an improper batter becomes a runner or is retired, and the defensive team appeals to the umpire before the first pitch to the next batter or before any attempted play. So we all know what a pitch is, but what's an attempted play? Okay, an attempted play would be a pickoff, anything along those lines. So certainly that's not going to happen in the majors, but as you get to intermediate, junior, or senior, if there's a pickoff attempt, that nullifies it as well. Okay, so if they do that before, then the proper batter is out, and you nullify any advance or score made because a ball was batted by the improper batter, or because the improper batters advanced to first on a hit and error base on balls hit batter or otherwise. So we've got a lot of things going on here, and it's really quite simple. Okay, if the improper batter, so again we've got Abel and Baker, if Baker completes their at bat, and then prior to the next pitch or attempted play, the defensive team appeals, then what you've got is Abel being out, and you're nullifying any advances, period. So here's your scenario now. Again, same batting order. Abel, Baker, Charles. Abel is supposed to be at bat, but Baker comes up instead. Baker walks. Before the next play or pitch, the defensive team appeals, says, we had Abel at bat. Who was at bat? They go, oh, wow, it's Baker. Now you've got an out. Baker okay, is not the one that's out. Abel is the one that's out. He's the one that didn't come up to bat. He's the one who skipped in the batting order. So that batter who was supposed to be up, the proper batter, is out. And now Baker, who was on first base, is no longer on first base. He becomes the batter because he's the next batter in the order. Okay, so we'll see that in another scenario as well. Again, here's a little side note. If a runner advances while the improper batter is at bat on a stolen base or illegal pitch or balk or pass ball or whatever it happens to be, that advance is legal. So normally we said that the runners would return when an improper batter is discovered. But if there's a steal or a run on a pass ball or a balk or whatever it happens to be in that, or something like that, then that runner can advance. So when an improper batter becomes a runner or is retired, and a pitch is made to the next batter of either team before an appeal is made, the improper batter therefore, or thereby, becomes the proper batter, and the results at such time become legal. So in other words, they can only appeal before the next pitch or play on the following batter. If they don't, then play just continues on. Too bad, so sorry, you missed out. So again, scenario, Abel, Baker, Charles. Abel is supposed to bat but doesn't. Baker comes up. Baker hits a double. The next batter in line would be Charles. They throw a pitch to Charles. Ball one. The defensive manager asks for time and says, hey, we had batting out of order. What happened to Abel? Where did he go? Well, doesn't really matter. Baker stays on second. Charles is at bat. If they had appealed before the first pitch or play, then they could have had something. But since they let something happen, a pitch or a play, all appeal possibilities are over. When we get into D, when a proper batter is called out for failing to bat, the next batter shall be the batter whose name follows that batter in the order. So just like I said a few minutes ago, if the improper batter is discovered before a next pitch or next play, Abel was supposed to bat, but Baker did. Baker walked. Abel is out. Baker comes back to bat. The instant an improper batter's actions are legalized or legitimized, the batting order picks up with the name following that of the legalized improper batter. So we would again continue on. So what happens if? So again, really simple scenarios here. Don't think, don't get too caught up in the improper proper thing. Start to think about this in terms of some case plays. So as I said, here's our batting order given. Abel, Baker, Charles. We're not going to see Daniel and Edward. Now, if you look through the real book, there are, I think, 8 different case plays or approved rulings or scenarios. I think we're just going to talk about 3 or 4 of them that you might potentially see. So play number 1. Baker is at bat. What is not written here and what needs to be understood is that Abel should be at bat. So Baker bats, count of 2-1. The offensive team discovers the error, or the defensive team appeals. So while the improper batter, in this case Baker, is still at bat, count of 2-1, one of the teams realizes that the batter is incorrect or improper. So what do we have? Well, in either case, Abel is going to replace Baker, so we get the correct batter up into the box with the count 2-1, and play resumes. What about this scenario? Baker bats and doubles. The defensive team appeals immediately or after a pitch to the following batter. So again, Abel was supposed to be up, but Baker came up and doubled. So now what happens in each of these scenarios? Well, in scenario A, Abel is called out, again because they should have batted, and Baker is the proper batter. So what happens to the double? Goes away. No ghost runner on second or anything like that. Okay, so that batter who hit the double, the double is nullified, and that batter comes back up to bat with an out. Or, if after a pitch to Charles, Baker stays on second, and now Charles is the proper batter, they have lost their right to an appeal because a pitch or a play has taken place. Okay, third scenario on this one. Abel walks. So first batter walks. Second batter walks. Charles forces Baker. Edward bats in Daniel's turn, so now we've got batting out of order. Okay, so first batter walked, second batter walked, third batter was correct, forced Baker. Edward bats in Daniel's turn. Now, while Edward is at bat, Abel scores, and Charles goes on a second on a wild pitch. Then Edward grounds out, so the wrong batter grounds out. Sending Charles to third, the defensive team appeals either immediately or after a pitch to Daniel. So what happens again? In the immediate scenario, the run counts, and Charles is entitled to second base because the advances were not made because of the improper batter. It was just a wild pitch, so they can advance on that. Now what happens if the next batter comes up and there's a pitch? Well, again, all appeals are off. So the run counts, Charles stays on third. Okay. But in the previous scenario, remember, Daniel is called out and Edward is the proper batter. Sounds a little confusing, okay? But just remember, again, they're really trying to complicate things and confuse things. Break it down very simply. Get the right batter in the box during the count if you can. If it's discovered after that batter's actions, after he's completed his time at bat, and is appealed prior to the next pitch or play, you've got an out, and you're putting that batter generally back up at bat, unless something else, unless like they skipped two batters or something weird. That won't happen. Okay, so you get the right batter back up at bat and whatever happened. However, if during the play, with the improper batter at the bat, there are steals, pass balls, whatever, those are going to be okay because they're not due to an action of that person at bat. And that's really about it. Simple and broken down. Thanks for your time.